Of course, money or candy from a store. But right now it looks as though she has forgotten these basic rules. But Karen's friend, the salesgirl, hasn't forgotten and wonders who the stranger is that is buying candy for her and why. Karen, having already forgotten her parents' warnings, finds it easy to forget another. Never to go anywhere with a stranger or accept rides with you don't know, no matter what they tell you. Her friend does what you should do in a situation like this. She takes down the license number of the car and the description of the stranger and calls the police. Her information is sent out by police radio to officers all over town. So that they can be on the lookout for the car with Karen and the stranger. At home, Karen's mother is beginning to get worried. She is waiting and waiting. But no Karen. She knows just how long it takes Karen to get home from school, but she is already half an hour late. So because Karen's friend remembered to take down the car's license number, everything turned out all right. And Karen, of course, knew her telephone number so that the policeman could call her mother right away to come and get her. My name is Mrs. Perkins, and I am a policewoman. We had a while to wait for Karen's mother to come and get her, so this was a good chance for me to tell Karen of some of the dangers children her age must be on the lookout for. Most people in the world are good and nice, but unfortunately, there are some strange ones. And these strange ones are sick. Not sick with a cold or measles or anything like that, but sick in the mind. We call them mentally ill. Now, many boys and girls enjoy playing in areas like this. They explore interesting places and make up games to play by themselves. But you never know when there might be a strange one around. Sometimes we become so involved in what we are doing that we can't see the danger. And even if this little boy had seen the man, how could he know that he was a strange one? There's no way to tell. The strange ones look just like everyone else. It is wise to avoid playing in deserted areas like this, especially when you are alone. I explained to Karen that you should not play in any area where there are no other people around, and you must also be on your guard even when you are downtown. Like this little girl, running an errand for her mother. When the stranger stops her and asks directions, she politely and courteously gives him the information. But when he asks her to go with him, of course she says no, politely excuses herself and goes on her way. Never go with strangers when they ask for directions. And if there is any trouble, just call out for help. And if you see any of your friends about to make a mistake, you can help. It's always a good idea when you go to the park or the movies or even to the store to take along a friend. And when you are at the park, play in the areas that are set aside as playgrounds. Do not hang around the restrooms. And if you see any of your playmates about to get into trouble, get help from a police officer or someone you know. Just as these children did, they ran and found the little girl's mother. You not only have to look out for yourself, but for the little children who don't know any better and can't understand that some people are sick in the mind. There are so many ways you can get into trouble with the strange ones. And one of the quickest is by hitchhiking. It is a wise young man who knows not to hitch rides with strangers. There are so many things that could happen other than you're getting a quick ride home. The man may be drunk and get into an accident, or he may be just a bad driver, or a strange one with no intention of taking you home. If you ever see any of your friends hitchhiking, and cannot stop them, get the license number of the car. And remember not to take shortcuts, especially through alleys or empty side streets. You never know when a strange one might approach you, and it may never happen, but it is far better to be on the safe side. Be on your guard and know what to look out for. Like this little girl in the movie theater. She remembers what her parents told her. Never let a stranger touch you or put his hands on you. She told the usher in the theater, and this man won't bother anyone again. I think Karen can see now how foolish she was. And if it hadn't been for a friend, remembering the right thing to do, how much trouble she might have been in. Karen will remember never to accept gifts or rides from strangers, and now she knows to stay clear of deserted places. Well, Karen's adventure has made her have become wiser, too.
Everybody that I knew, my good friends, had pinned their hopes on me. Oh, this is the guy that's going to go through school. I let a lot of them down. Walking around, I think about that a lot. You know, how come I did this and how come I did that, you know? Wasted 2.5 years, there's no doubt about that. Right now, I'm not doing anything. I'm drifting.
Just 4 years ago, Alfred Barnard of Quincy, Illinois, was an honor student at the Quincy High School. His IQ, 118. An A student in the 8th grade. B's and A's in 9th grade. Still an honor student. 1 year later, D's and F's failure. Al Barnard dropped out of school. One of millions of American youngsters out of school, out of work. Most of them, like Al, just drifting. In these years of decision, the class bell rings America's youth into high school. A high school diploma is a strong weapon in this troubled world. Most students graduate, but not all. 1 out of 3 high school students in the nation do not graduate. 1 million high school students drop out every year. In big cities, from schools like this in Quincy, Illinois. Quincy is a typical American city on the banks of the Mississippi. Here lives a dropout, Alfred Barnard, age 18. Al is not a typical dropout. No one is typical. But some of his reasons may be, and the unreasoning resentment that made him do what he did.
Well, what was it in school that made you mad at everything?
Well, I was doing pretty good in the 10th grade, and then I skipped school for a week one time, and I got a few lectures on it in front of the class, and that kind of made me a little angry, so that kind of built up in me, and I just quit.
Do you think it was impulsive now? Do you think it was ill-considered?
Yes, I do now. I definitely need schooling. I think anybody does. But at the time when I quit, I didn't think too much about that. I just thought about getting away from the teachers and getting a job and making money.
As soon as you quit school, what did you do?
Well, I looked for a job, and I found one right away at a shoe factory. And I worked there for about 9 months, and I quit because the work got monotonous and so on.
Do you remember what you were thinking about when you went into this long period of skipping? Why did you want to skip?
I can't think any reason for that. Me and this kid just decided to skip, so we skipped. I mean, there wasn't any reason.
Was your school work up to snuff?
Yes.
Well, Al, some of these teachers indicate that there was a very sudden change in your attitude from good work to bad work. Can you remember anything that happened either in or out of school that would have caused a very sudden change?
The only thing I can think of would just be skipping school. There was a lot of things that were connected with it, but such as when I was in school, some classes I wouldn't have enough work, and I'd be daydreaming about the other guys quitting school, my age, having jobs, clothes, things like that. But I think the big factor was the lecture on skipping school.
Well, when you went into this final period of skipping, why did you suddenly decide to start skipping school?
I think it just come on all of a sudden. I mean, the guy says, let's skip. I can't remember who said it, but it just happened. There was no reason for it.
What about work here? Is there any kind of work that you can get that you'd like?
No, there's not. There's not much job opportunities at all.
Do you have any notion about what kind of work you'd like to get?
When I was smaller, I always wanted to be a lawyer, but I think that's kind of out of the question now.
Without a diploma, a lot of things are out of the question, in Quincy or any other American city. Towns like this were not built on schooling. When Abe Lincoln matched self-education with Stephen Douglas in Quincy, Illinois, few men went far in school. Later, substantial families built lives and homes on thriving river commerce and industry. Quinceyites thrived with them. At least others still struggled to raise their standards. And now education through high school is their first hope. Among these people, school dropouts reach their highest level, 60%. This is nearly twice the dropout rate in all of Quincy. Even with a diploma, jobs are not easy to find in Quincy factories. For those without a diploma, jobs are still harder to find. Al Barnard lives here in Quincy's Indian Hills. It is low-rent housing. Most of his friends here are dropouts. Many parents in Al's neighborhood did not finish school. They don't understand schooling. Many are unable to help their children with school work. There's no contact with teachers. They don't speak the same language. The environment favors the dropout. Al is a redhead. When he was younger, he was small for his age. He had to learn to make himself respected. He is independent by nature, even obstinate. Again, his environment encourages such attitudes. He swaggers a little when he walks. That, too, is in style. But such attitudes, even if desirable world outside school, were hard to shed when the school bell rang. The police in town know Al Barnard. They know many dropouts. Al was bright in his early school days. School was easy for him, too easy, if anything. But his older brother and sister quit school, then his friends. He found himself the last kid in his group, bringing school books home at night. The others seemed to have jobs, at least some of the time. They had money. Al's mother tried to keep him in school.
Do you think that Al sensed any difference between him and the other youngsters when he brought his books home?
Yes, I do. I think that he would study of an evening and the others were out playing or anything, and I think they kind of laughed at him a little because he studied so much.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel, you and your husband feel, when Alfred finally quit school?
Well, we were pretty disappointed because we wanted him, he was doing so good, and we wanted him to finish his high school at least.
Did you ever talk to Alfred about back in the times when he was doing pretty well in school? Did you ever talk to him about maybe going to college?
Well, no, we never had discussed college.
Ms. Barnard, tell us a little about Al when he was a younger boy in Hull.
Well, he was a good little boy. He'd come in and take his naps when he was small, and of course, when he got a little older, he scrapped around and played with the neighborhood children there, and he had a lot of friends. And of course, he went to school down there, and the boys and girls would come to the house to play.
Was he a pretty scrappy kid?
Well, yes, he was, and all the little neighborhood boys liked to come down to see how tough he was.
He was willing to show him, was he?
Yes,
In Quincy, Al Barnard attended the Barry Ann Elementary School. In this school, the dropout rate runs over 50%. Al was the kind of pupil teachers remembered.
Morning, Mrs. Spring.
Good
Do
morning.
you remember Alfred Barnard?
I remember Alfred Barnard very well.
Do you recall these comments that you made on his 5th grade report?
I have never taught a nicer boy than Alfred. He seems almost perfect in everything. He has an excellent attitude and is very cooperative. He has unusual talent in drawing. I hope that he will always work at it because I am sure it'll offer him much in his future.
What can you tell us about Alfred when he was here in the 5th grade?
Alfred was very energetic. He was intelligent. He always had his work finished before the others. He was a rather aggressive type of a boy, but in this room he always put it to a good advantage.
Did you, at that time, have any indication that he might not finish school?
None. I had none whatsoever. He enjoyed school. He enjoyed everything about it.
His behavior?
Oh, I thought he was a wonderful child. I was very fond of him, and he was no trouble in the classroom.
Educators in Quincy and everywhere look for ways to meet the dropout problem and are just beginning to find the answers. Superintendent Lester Lytle, Principal Roland Bachman of Senior High, Dr. Ronald Clark of Junior High, and his assistant Brant Crocker.
Some of the causes of dropouts, I would think probably the primary consideration at the moment is the inability of the kid to feel that the school is where he wants to be. Now, this can be achieved in many manners, or is brought about in many ways. I think the economic level, the socio-economic level from which he comes is a very important contribution to this.
Most of them come from the lower third.
I would say that we find people, the typical dropout would be a kid who comes from a home where there's not a lot of money. And among associates, you'll find many kids who are associating with boys and girls who have not considered school as important as they maybe should and have dropped out as a result of that. The friendship is a very important thing.
I think another thing is the lack of success. I think if a youngster is succeeding, he tends to stay in school. But if he's failing, that discourages him and he tends to drop out. If he has one thing he enjoys doing, he'll put up with a lot of wear and tear on the others in order to enjoy the one.
Of course, I differ with you a little, Mr. Crocker, on the economic level. While I think economics has a lot to do with youngsters dropping out of school, I think it's their associates and their friends that cause them to drop out more than the economic level. I have a feeling that the youngsters do about as well in school as their parents want them to do. We have youngsters from the low economic level who are very successful students in our high school. But their parents, I think, have given them encouragement. And I think it's a parental problem as far as dropouts are concerned.
This may well be. I do think, however, that we as school people must do everything we can to see that this condition is alleviated. I think that we can instill in parents more positive attitude by our own actions. I think this can be an important part of it.
I think that's right. And I know that this past year, or 2 years, since we sent these counselors into the homes to visit the parents before the youngster comes into school, one of the first contacts with the parent in the school has been a friendly one. I think we're doing a better job holding youngsters in school than we did before.
I wonder if we could talk for just a second about a specific case. Here's a young fellow by the name of Alfred Barnard, who in 5th grade had comments like this on his report card. I have never taught a nicer boy than Alfred. He seems almost perfect in everything. In 6th grade, Alfred continues to do good work. He is an excellent student. I believe that Alfred could do anything, and I hope the best of opportunities will open up for him in his life. Straight A's, S's, all the way through 6th, 7th, 8th grades, 9th grade, a little drop-off, 10th grade, out of school.
And what are the causes of that, would you say? I don't happen to know Alfred's case personally, but I would say to you that it probably is the people with whom he became associated with during the summer between his freshman and sophomore years.
It's a very dramatic change.
There was a day when the boy really wanted to do things in school. I don't feel like the school contributed to his pulling out of school. I don't know what Al would say. I frankly don't know how he would react to it, but I know his friends, and his friends are good people, but they aren't essentially interested in the same things that Alfred was once interested in. And I think today Al has pretty well joined them in terms of his interests. Although I know he recognizes the thing that he has done, and I'm sure that in many respects wishes that he had done things differently.
That's right. Sure. Yeah. One specific thing that he points to quite often is a skipping school episode which resulted in a lecture given by a teacher in class directed at skipping school, and everyone in the class, he said, knew that the teacher was talking about him, and this embarrassed him, and he got mad.
But I'm sure this teacher, in her own way or in his own way, I have no idea what it would be, felt that she was doing the right thing. This is I've got to help this boy see that it's important.
Well, we as teachers, Brad, don't you think, do the same with students as we do with our own youngsters when we discipline them. We don't know whether we've used the right tactics in disciplining youngsters. I've disciplined my own daughter, and sometimes I think I was successful, and sometimes I know I did the wrong thing, but I did what I thought was best at the time, and I think that's exactly what teachers do. They do what they think is best at the particular time. Now, speaking of this case, I think we must admit that there's one place where the school may have been in error. I don't know about this, but unless, I think he dropped out at the end of his sophomore year and didn't return in his junior year. Now, I'm not sure that we sent a representative of the school to his home to see why he didn't come back to school. And I think that's one of the spots we must be sure, with all these dropouts, that we know why and that they have a home visit by some member of the school staff before the dropout is official. But I think there should be, in every case of every dropout, a final summation of what we've done and what we've tried to do to make it a part of the record.
English teacher Margaret Fisher found Al a good student in 10th grade, but he didn't complete the year.
I was never able to really figure that out. Al was awfully short for his age, And on numerous occasions, he would indicate to me that he felt that he was the butt of jokes, and I think he harbored a lot of resentment against perhaps his own home background.
Al's history teacher, Arthur Cox.
I would like to say that Al had just a little bit of a feeling that the world was against him. I think that he felt that people weren't on his side.
Geometry teacher John Parks can't explain it.
I have no idea other than the fact that he was absent quite often.
He was skipping school.
I presume that to be the case, yes.
Do you have any notion of why he quit school?
I have no idea.
There wasn't any one reason why I quit school. There was a number of reasons. And maybe I could have did things different. But I think if someone outside of my family and friends had come to me, they might have been able to straighten me out. But this never happened in senior high. Nobody ever came to me and said, Al, I want to talk to you. Your grades are dropping. So I figured they didn't care.
He was hard to get next to. I would try to talk to him, explain to him what he was doing, his schoolwork, but he just simply didn't have any interest in school.
I'd like to get up the nerve to go back and do it again, only do it different this time. I felt kind of awkward at senior high. All the people were different. I didn't feel right as I did in junior high. I was the last of my age group to quit. I mean, yeah, I took it longer than they did. I worked harder than a lot of them did. And when I come back that week after skipping, well, you could kind of feel it like, well, you know, I knew this was going to happen, and he's like all the rest of them. So I just sat back and quit trying. I felt like they know where I'm from, so here I am. You can't do good work if you like to do something. If you don't like a teacher in school, you can't possibly do good work for that teacher. Well, it seems to me that if you're in a low-income neighborhood, such as I am, that people, your reputation may not be very good. I mean, as a group, and they, like you're going to school, they know where you come from. It seems like that they know what they're going to expect. Well, this guy is from so-and-so. He's not going to do too little work. And I think that's the wrong way to feel about it. If I went back to school, I'd take the hardest things I could take just to show people that coming from that neighborhood, I could do just as well as anybody that's got all they need. And the rest of them could be just me.
The fact is that Al Barnard, with an IQ of 118, is a brighter boy than most who drop out of school, a more talented boy. Yet with all his gifts, he was not able to withstand the pressures of the social and economic life that surround him, and how much harder it is for the others who are not just like him. Arthur Lee Jones was Al's principal at Berry Ann Elementary School.
Well, Alfred came here, I believe, in the 4th grade, and was here for 1 year after I became principal here. Alfred was one of the boys that we have always been concerned about due to the fact that he had, we thought, exceptional aptitude in many fields, yet in spite of that aptitude, eventually dropped out of school. A terrible waste. I feel, actually, that in a measure, the school was to blame for that. I have a feeling that had we completely developed the potentialities of this boy, that he would have had even more success at the junior high school level and perhaps at the senior high school level. Alfred was a fine artist, fine athlete, very good student all the way through, evidenced great leadership, and I've thought about him many times. As a matter of fact, did contact Dr. Clark, the junior high school, concerning him on numerous occasions. We I think, could have utilized many of his potentialities to a greater extent and perhaps have helped keep him in school. Of course, that's speculation on my part because that's already happened.
It's already happened, says Principal Lee Jones. But he hopes it won't happen to children like these. They are just now starting in Al Barnard's footsteps through grammar school. Mr. Jones and his teachers know more now than they did. A 10-year study by the Quincy Youth Development Commission shows that the roots of dropout begin early, even in kindergarten. One way to change the pattern is to spot potential dropouts before the twig is bent, to correct maladjustment, to make school happy and productive and see that it stays that way. Much of the burden of dropout weighs on the schools, for dropouts past and future. Welfare Secretary Abraham Ribicoff says 1/2 of America's youngsters between 16 and 20, like Al and his friends, are jobless. He calls it a national tragedy, says schools must revise their programs for vocational training. The public must be willing to pay for such training and for better teaching and counseling at every level.
At times I wish I was back in school. I wish I was doing something. I mean, it gets monotonous, same thing day after day, which is nothing.
The days are long. They may become longer. There's little difference in the shape of when it's wasted. Perhaps Al will go back to school. Perhaps he can swallow his pride and associate with students younger than he. Return to a discipline now 3 years gone. Go to a status which most of his environment considers kid-like. It's a difficult challenge. Al is the product of his own world. If the schools have failed him in not holding him, his world has failed him in not giving him reason to be held. And we have failed both of them. Still, we aim our education at that bare 30% which will go on to college and offer little of interest to those who will not. If we are to hold young people in school, this must be changed. Nor can we look upon all schools as being equal, for they are not. They are the gathering point of the problems of the neighborhood. The greater the problems, the more help we will need to give them. One thing is certain. Our future is more linked to the Al Barnards of this world than to the satellites which a few in our society are producing. Societies are collections of individuals. None can be wasted. Certainly not 1 million a year. Our high school dropouts.
Have you ever known a fellow like Phil who waited too long to ask a girl to a dance at school? You've got to give him credit for trying. But today, he's a loser, and his friends aren't making it easier for him. Another try, with no better luck. You can't blame Phil for wishing he'd behaved differently. Thinking back, he realizes that his friends might have been able to help him with the problem. Or at least he could have walked out without pushing people around. But that's not what Phil did, and he knows it. Is he starting to question his actions? To wonder whether his behavior was immature? No one asked her to the dance Saturday night. She wants a shoulder to cry on. But her mother isn't offering her sympathy. She's having too much fun with an old friend. She thinks, Mother always acts so silly with Mrs. Harris. Shouldn't they act more like older women? No, that doesn't seem right either. Maturity means something more than how old you are. How should women their age act? Maybe there's no set rule. Maybe life is made up of different circumstances calling for different kinds of behavior. Perhaps relaxed. Perhaps respectful. Perhaps businesslike. Or perhaps friendly. All can be mature actions at the right time and place. They're old friends. What's wrong with their having fun? Maturity isn't just how a person acts. It's how he and others feel about those actions. Everyone feels emotional when something happy occurs. When something frightening happens. Or when something tragically funny takes place. But people behave differently. Some show the first feeling they have, and sometimes their reactions cause pain. But other people bring their first reactions under control quickly, try to help or to reason things out. It's no use saying, be mature, or act maturely. There's no rule for maturity in young people, or adults. It's something a person works out on his own, perhaps by thinking things over when upset or excited. And, in the end, the more mature the behavior, the more pleasant life can be for that person, and for others, too. George, Tom, and Hank have been friends for 3 years, long enough to learn each other's sensitive spots. For instance, though Tom wants to be an athlete, he's not too good at sports. Okay, it's true, but Hank is wrong to rub it in. It makes Tom mad. And he thinks he'd like to fight Hank. But he doesn't. The conversation changes, and the tension is easing up. And now that it's all over, Tom feels better, glad that he waited and held back instead of making trouble. Sally wants to go to her club meeting an hour early. That's when they're planning entertainment for the dance. but she's got about an hour of geometry homework to do. That's her choice, the homework or the meeting. She tries to work it out on her own. Maybe she can leave the meeting before it's over. Come home a little early. Or maybe her mother will let her stay up late after the meeting to do her homework. Maybe that'll be okay. Or maybe she can come to the meeting late, but still get in on planning the entertainment. Maybe that'll be all right with the girls. Maybe not. Is there a different solution? Maybe Margot Carlson will let her copy her homework. It's an easy way out, but she knows it's wrong. Sally doesn't want to ask about staying up late, and she's afraid to come to the meeting late. And the situation is more difficult because the choices are not equally mature ones. Here's Phil again. Remember he was looking for a date? Well, he's got one. With Betty. He doesn't especially like her. She's okay. You guessed it. Someone he really does like has called back. She can make it to the dance all. Will he with Betty, who said yes first, or the other girl that he likes better? Whatever he does will take some mature thinking. In a way, that's what maturity is. Thinking before moving. Considering other people's feelings. Up to tough situations. That's what maturity is all about.
They say, what you don't know can't hurt you. But in the next few minutes, we will demonstrate that what you don't read can harm or even kill you. Mr. Willis was using paint remover to strip the finish from a piece of furniture. Too bad Mr. Willis didn't read the label on the paint remover can. It warned that the contents were flammable. On many products we use every day, there are important words on the labels. Words like danger, warning, caution. They even appear on some foods like those sold in aerosol cans. Not all warnings have to do with fire hazards or poisons. Here are some of the most common problems caused when people do not read the warnings on labels. Bob was going to do some lacquering in the kitchen. The label on the lacquer thinner can reads, danger extremely flammable. If the flames, the pilot lights, or the intense heat from that burner caught the fumes, it could put a stop to his work forever. Lucky this time, He even remembered that turning off the range still leaves the pilot lights on, and even they could ignite the fumes. Here is a popular item in most homes, hairspray. But they have a very important warning on the label. There is a reason for this warning. Watch. Some materials, of course, such as charcoal starter fluids, are made to burn easily. If handled carelessly, they can cause accidents. For example, never add starter fluid to freshen an already lighted fire. Handle all flammable materials of this kind with great care and according to instructions. The Browns never knew how close they came to having a visit from the fire department when Debbie sprayed for insects in the forced air furnace closet. Most insecticides are carried in a light oil, a mist that can be ignited by furnace or water heater pilot lights. In enclosed spaces, spray insecticides may be very poisonous as well. Read the label. Insect sprays made for outside use may be even more poisonous than those made for indoor use. Be sure to know any dangers about the product you are using. And read the label on glues and adhesives. The home handyman should know that some types are flammable, particularly those used with floor and ceiling tiles and countertop materials. Joan sustained serious facial injuries when a pressurized can of air freshener blew up. She had left it on the range, too close to a hot unit. She should have read the label. It warned to keep the product away from heat, anywhere the temperature could reach 120 degrees. Objects exposed to the sun may reach this temperature on a hot day. Because aerosol cans may explode, never discard them with trash that is to be burned. They could explode in the fire and cause injuries. Care should be taken never to store aerosol packaged products in the glove compartment or trunk of a car. Heat builds up when the car is parked in the sun, and the can may explode or release all of the product, creating a real mess. Mrs. Rogers is trying frantically to reach the emergency hospital. Her little girl has swallowed too much of a well-known medicine. She should have read the label. It may have told her to induce vomiting if the child is conscious, and how to do this. Most medicines have a warning on the label. Keep medicines out of the reach of children. Even common headache remedies, such as aspirin, are deadly if too many are swallowed. If children do manage to find and eat or drink things like medicine, paint thinner, rubbing compounds, read the label. In many cases, it will tell you what to do or not to do until the doctor arrives. It is often thought that vomiting should always be induced, but there are chemicals and liquids such as kerosene, lighter fluid, lye, or acid, where vomiting should not be induced. Read the label. Mrs. Johnson had a bad cold. She bought an antihistamine medication and took the dosage recommended on the label. Too bad she didn't read the rest of the label. Later, after another dose, she felt she was really getting some relief. She decided to go to the supermarket and then pick up the children at school. she never really knew what happened. She woke up in the emergency hospital. She had blacked out at the wheel. The cold remedy label had warned that drowsiness might follow the dosage, and that anyone taking it should not try to drive or operate machinery. Several modern preparations, like Mrs. Johnson's cold remedy, contain drugs that may make you drowsy. This can cause serious driving problems. The problems are compounded when drugs are mixed with other drugs or with alcohol. Because we use many products that have built-in hazards, always read the label. Look for the word danger for highest hazards. Look for the word warning for substantial hazard. Look for the word caution for what may be a lesser hazard. But remember, any hazard can harm you. If you saw a sign like this, you wouldn't try to drive on through. Such notices make an impression. Think of the warning on the container as being just as big and impressive. If there is printed material on the container, the manufacturer wants to tell you something. How much to take, how to use, what to do, and if there is danger, a warning that could save you suffering or save your life. And fortunately, you may have a choice. With many products, you may be safer. So, check before you buy. Read the label and live.
Delinquency is not a new problem in America. But as it has spread with the automobile and the population explosion out into the suburbs, more and more institutions and individuals express their concern. Churches, schools, parents, social agencies, all are involved. And last but not least, the police. Today, as in times past, they're on duty 24 hours a day, round the clock.
Cars 25 and 32, you have a signal 60 at Pine and Boulevard Heights at 10:20.
More and more police departments throughout the country are using the latest techniques of police science and their finest men to control and, if possible, wipe out juvenile crime.
13, you have a stolen bicycle report at 5433 Spring Road.
I don't want to see you in here again for this foolishness, do you understand?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to release you to your mother today, but tomorrow morning, the first thing, I want you to see the school counselor. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
I'll let you take him home now, but you make certain he sees the counselor tomorrow morning. I'll be by the school in the afternoon to make sure you've done this. All right?
Thank you.
You can take him home now.
What are
Truancy.
your parents going to think about it?
Shoplifting.
You ever been in trouble before, Tony?
No, sir.
Your first go. How about you, Bobby? Never.
Yes, we have your son at the station. We want you to come down. We want to talk to you about this boy. Fine. Goodbye. My name is Vincent Free. I'm the deputy chief here. About 80% of the offenses we handle involve juveniles. Most of these cases, fortunately, are of a minor nature. But policemen are concerned with these so-called minor violations because we know that a youth who breaks the rules and gets by with it today is headed for more serious trouble tomorrow. More and more, we are attempting to get at the youth before he gets into serious trouble. I know that all departments operate differently. Large departments operate one way, small departments another. I wouldn't pretend to tell you that we have all the answers in our department, but we do believe that we have some good approaches. For example, we attempt to develop a sound attitude on the part of all of our officers toward juvenile work. In addition, we believe we have developed some effective procedures. This field report is submitted by the officers who have contact with the juveniles while on patrol. The youth report is submitted when the juvenile is actually brought to the station and there either detained or released to his parents. All of these case files enable us to pinpoint the trouble spots and also gives us information as to where the troublemakers come from. Some of these areas are widely separated. All of this information enables us to plan our preventive program and to map our patrol routes.
Regular patrolling does several things. It enables police to check on persons, places, and conditions which may contribute to delinquency. It discourages violations. It puts police in a position to do a good job of informing the public.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sidley. I thought I'd stop by and see how you were doing tonight. Everything quiet?
Very quiet.
Getting back to that talk I gave the other night, maybe if we get some more people to give us some more cooperation, we could do a whole lot more. The other night we went in a place down the street and kids got in there, broke up the man's showcase, glasses, tore the place up completely. We got there, the kids were standing around like a bunch of angels. Couldn't get the man to prosecute. We've got to get together on this. Everybody.
Police do get together with many community groups. They help supervise sponsored dances at fire halls and schools. Juvenile Officer Arthur Kreiner often finds this duty added to his busy schedule. His presence is reassuring to both chaperones and teenagers. Such programs give youngsters something to do at night.
County Police.
Too many parents do not know where their children are or what they're up to after dark.
I gotta tell you about, listen, I want to tell you about, my kid is missing and she's been gone for a long time.
One moment, please. I'll connect you with Juvenile.
Oh, all right, okay. Just
Juvenile Bureau, Foley speaking.
Is this a policeman? A policewoman? Listen, I've got to tell you about my daughter. She's been missing for a long time, and I'm terribly worried about her. I don't know where she is.
Well, how long ago did she leave?
What? Well, she went out with these 3 kids, and I don't know who they are. They're very hooded. Oh, shut up, damn it!
Oh, what is your name, madam?
My name is Mrs. Parrish, and her name is Jane. Yeah, we live at 509 Elm Street. Yes, but please do something about it in a hurry. I don't know what to do about her.
Well, Mrs. Parrish, we'll try to get her back as soon as possible. I'll put a lookout for her and see what we can do for you. And I'll call you as soon as we find something.
All cars, signal 1034.
Mine is 8334.
All cars attempt to locate one Jane Parrish, a white female, 16 years, 5'2", 110 pounds.
Police often cooperate in locating minors, not because of any violation or complaint, but to prevent possible delinquency.
Oh, it should be great. What? Oh, you can come in. Come later.
Look, is Alice going?
Huh?
Is Alice going?
I don't know what else is going on. You know anything? You all go with me?
Excuse me. Are you Jane Parrish?
Yeah, but I didn't do anything wrong.
I'd like to speak to you for a moment, please. Would you step out here?
The juvenile's first contact with police will leave a lasting impression, for better or worse.
Look, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm having fun here.
No one said you did anything wrong.
Look, I'm a big girl and I can take care of myself.
You don't
Please
belong in a
understand.
place like this
What's
time
wrong
of
with
night.
this?
You don't belong here. Your mother wants you home.
My mother.
I have orders to take you to the station. How about getting your coat and coming along with me? You can tell those fellas that your mother is sick.
Oh, they won't believe
The
that.
officer is courteous. He explains but avoids an argument. He helps her to save face in front of her friends. This means a great deal to teenagers.
Maybe the dentist.
Okay.
Mr. Parrish? This is the police department calling. That's right, sir. We have your daughter Janie down here. Yes. Well, we would like to have a little talk with you if you'd come down the station, please. That's right. Janie, would you like to tell me what the problem is?
Well, the trouble's my parents. They treat me like a 10-year-old child. I mean, I'm a big kid now. I'm 16, and I know what's best for me. You know what time I have to be in on weekends? 12 o'clock. Isn't that dumb?
Well, now, Janie, you know, you have to realize sometimes that parents are a little old-fashioned once in a while, and they're not as understanding as maybe they should be, but,
Well, gee whiz, I like to have fun, too.
Everybody likes to have fun.
I got a great bunch of friends. We go to all these just crazy places and dance. And my parents can't understand that. They're so busy fighting.
Well, don't worry about them fighting. Let's just worry about you. Now, I think that what we're going to have to do is to sit down and have a long discussion with your parents. Right? I mean, we're not here to solve their problems. We're here to solve your problem right now. This is the most important thing.
I don't have any problems.
Now,
They're the ones that have all the problems.
Now, wait a minute.
It's all their fault. I mean, I'm perfectly
Will you
willing.
take it easy a minute? Now, just what happens that you get so upset at home all the time?
Well, it's not me.
I know.
I mean, I have my fun and I come in and then they start fighting.
All right, you said that your
Sure, it's
parents
not
fight all the
me.
time.
They sure do.
Now, you're going to have to sit down and discuss this thing calmly with them for a change.
Calmly.
And try to reach...
Well, you ought to see the calmness in the house. I'm calm. A bunch of screaming.
Jane Parrish is not a delinquent. Not yet.
That you can sit down with
She may well become one unless her family situation improves.
calmly and collectively. Right?
Well, things are pretty quiet tonight, Art.
Yeah, exceptionally.
These juvenile officers had fine records as uniformed men. Their experience and special training helped them spot trouble before it starts. Know which kids to keep an eye on.
Hey, you see those kids over there?
Yeah, I see them. I know them all. They're okay. They'll do.
You like kids, don't you?
Yeah. Sure do.
You have to like kids to be good in this job. Breaking up groups unlikely to cause trouble only builds up resentment against the police. Good police work requires judgment as well as regulations.
1962 Chevrolet Impala, bearing Maryland registration E. Edward 8816, operated by a white teenage male.
Put your hands on the roof.
72 by headquarters, go ahead.
Meet Officer Parker at the Sweetland Shopping Center. Reference to a juvenile that he is apprehended in a stolen auto.
10-4, en route.
What's your name, young fella? What's your name?
Bucky.
Bucky. What's your last name?
I have to talk to no cop.
Let's give me some straight answers, young fella. Watch your mouth. What's the house number on Holly Road?
117.
Where'd you get the car? Borrow it?
What you got, Parker?
I'm Art. Stolen car.
Not you again. Mickey, how about
The juvenile officer knows the youth of the area. With his special training and background, he can remain objective, can ease tension at the scene of apprehension.
John, I brought you over here to quiet you down. You had a fast chase. You had a hot-headed kid.
Well, I know. I had one like this last year. Some young punk beat up his old man. Took him to court, just like he went through a revolving door. He was back out on the street and in trouble again within 2 months. I don't know. It feels like I want to kick their tail sometimes.
Well, I know how you feel. When I had in uniform, I felt the same way. I pushed and shoved, kicked tails, but it didn't do me any good. I found out the easier you treat them, you con them, that you can get more out of them by going along with them, treating them like they're human beings than you do pushing them.
Well, I don't see why they don't put these kids in jail. Keep them out of trouble so that he won't hurt anybody.
Why don't you ask the judge sometime?
You don't want me out checking dog tags?
No, I don't want you doing that, or I don't want you down checking traffic down the country road.
I
You know how it is. But we'll get back to the serious part of it. The judge's calendar's full. Training schools is full. Probation is overworked. Social workers is overworked. We got everything full up. I think it's a problem for all of us, you and me included. I think if we can get to these kids before something serious happens, maybe we can help them.
I can understand that, Art. Thank you, and let's
get back to this mess we got here.
What do you got here, Mickey? Just some stuff found in back of the car. Looks like it came out of a school.
Looks like a cash box from a school cafeteria.
Did you make any papers on him?
Yes, Art. I have a field report here, but I couldn't get much out of him.
Well, I'll take this and take him to the station and make out a long form on him.
Okay.
You take care of the car?
Yeah, I'll call a crane, come and pick the thing up. I don't want it stolen again tonight.
Okay, I'll take him along.
All right,
Come on,
see you
Bob.
later.
Okay.
Well, I think that your lack of cooperation is one of your big problems. I mean, nobody is getting along with anyone else, and no one's making any effort to get along.
Tell me how you do this. How do you get along when you have two stubborn knuckleheads that don't want to get along with each other? I don't know. Do you have any answers? I don't know what it's all about anymore.
Detective Foley is not a trained counselor, but she can steer this family toward expert guidance when they are most open to suggestion at a time of trouble.
Some counseling. Have you been to the guidance counselor at school?
She's flunking in school because she's running around half the night.
Oh, please.
That's true, isn't it?
She asked me a
You can't blame it on
question.
just one person, and besides that, Mrs. Parrish is right. Have you?
You asked me about the counselors at school, and I don't know what to tell you because I don't understand them. They keep telling us that it's our fault. Everything's our fault. Well, maybe part of it's his fault, and I don't know. Maybe I'm...
Well, don't you feel that some of it is?
Well, like how? I've got a life to lead. I'm not an old hag.
No one said you were, Mrs. Parrish.
Well, just tell us where to begin. What do you do when you have two of them like...
Well, I think that, first of all, you're going to have to get together and try to discuss this thing. Now, there have been a group of parents that have gotten together with their children, and they've discussed this situation. I mean, things like dating and trying to understand one another. And I think it would be a good idea if you would try to do this.
You can write all
Give
the
it a
rules.
chance. Will you give it a chance?
She breaks all the rules that were ever written.
Will you let her alone
Well, you
for a
have to
minute?
try, Mr. Parrish. You can't look at this thing like it. It's not black and white, it's gray.
Detective Foley's suggestions help the family get the immediate crisis under control. She will follow up on referrals, see that appointments are kept. Meantime, she gets them speaking sensibly to one another again.
As I said before, these parents and these children have gotten together and worked these rules out themselves. I think that they have helped other parents, and I think that if you give them a chance, they might help you. I want the three of you to look at these things together.
She's going to have to look at them with us, too.
Janie, I think Janie will cooperate. You'll try anyway, won't you?
Yeah.
I'm not forcing you to do anything. I'm just asking for you to cooperate with each other. You look those over, and I have to make a phone call. I'll be back.
Come over here and look at it.
Okay.
Now, look, right here in black and white. See, 9 o'clock on school
Oh,
nights.
that's ridiculous.
Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Before you get so riled up, just look at this again. It says 12 o'clock on weekends.
Yeah. 1 o'clock after dances.
Well?
Well, lots of kids get to stay out later, but I guess that's not so bad.
I don't think that's unreasonable, do you?
No, I guess not.
Buck, when's your birthday?
You already know that. You had me in here enough.
What do you want me to do? Just put it in black? I've had a lot of other kids in here besides you, you know. You're not the only one that's ever been in
Doesn't make any
trouble.
difference, then.
Doesn't? Okay, I'll just look it up in one of your other reports. Bucky, you want to tell me about this school job? You want to tell me the boy? Want to tell me about the boy that was in the school with you the other night? You know, we know you were in the school. You want to tell me about him? Was it Joe Harris? Ricky? You've been hanging with him. Want to talk about it? Was it Joe Harris? Ricky Nelson? Huh? You sleep in the laundromats with him. You could very well have gone into that school with him, too. If you want to talk to me, I've never spun you. How about a cigarette? Hmm? Recognize him? Hey, tell me something. How'd they ever catch you in that car? Got that one of the hottest.
They sweated me, cornered me in, cut me off. No place to run. If it'd been on the highway, they never would have caught me.
Tell me about it. Where'd you get it? How'd you get it?
Got it over on I Street.
What'd you do, pop it? Somebody leave the keys in it?
No, hot wired.
Hot wired.
The juvenile officer wants all the facts,
Who's under the hood? I got
but he makes no promises, uses no threats to get them. The juvenile officer is interested in the boy as a person. The detective's aim is to help the young person in trouble and to protect the public, not to pass judgment. The officer takes time to get to know the youngster better. The subject's motivations, abilities, interests, and home background may have a bearing on disposition of the case.
Tell me something. You know, I know you're good with cars. You ever think about learning to use your knowledge? You got a little sense, I hope. Put it to some advantage? Fix them? You ever think about going to school or something?
Thought about it sometimes.
Just sometimes. Well, where do we go from here?
That's up to you, isn't it?
Well, I guess so. Operator, would you page Mickey Ferris and tell him I'd like to talk to him, Mrs. Kreiner? Well, Buck, now we will go from here.
Janie, I just talked to your minister on the telephone. He'd like to see you tomorrow after school. I know you haven't attended church very much, but that's all right. I think he can probably do you some good right now, don't you?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Well, what about the schoolwork? Now, that's one of the big problems that just bothers me tremendously, and I'd like to know something or some suggestions about the schoolwork.
Well, I think that she's going to have to get in touch with her guidance counselor tomorrow and make an appointment to see her as soon as possible.
It's good if she'll do it.
Well, I think she'll have to. There's no question about that. And then after Janie talks to her, then would suggest that the pair of you go in and see her and see which you can get some satisfaction.
Well, that's your mother's department, I think.
Oh, don't keep saying it's my department. We were going to try to work together on this thing.
No, I think that your wife is right, Mr. Parrish. I think that after all, she's your daughter too, and you're going to have to take a hand in this guidance.
All right, I said I'll try it.
Okay. Now, if you'll sign this paper, you can take Jeannie home with you now.
Well, I don't know about signing this thing here now. Just give her a criminal record or something?
No, this is just a reference for our files and has nothing to do with criminal records. No, she hasn't been charged with anything, Mr. Parrish. This is just a reference record, that's all. If you'll sign down here on this line.
When no charges have been preferred, juvenile records are always confidential
Thank you.
and for police reference only.
Tell you that I feel a little better.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
And thank you.
You're welcome.
I contacted the home. Both parents are out. In talking to the grandmother, she absolutely refuses to accept responsibility for the boy again. I talked to the chief and made arrangements with the jail to place the boy in detention temporarily.
Fine. I know the home situation. The father drinks a lot, so since Bucky's been sleeping the last 3 or 4 nights in the laundromat, I think the best place for him is down there.
This community, like so many others, has no separate detention home for juveniles. Has plans to build one.
Got another one for you.
A jail, even where juvenile cells are separated from adults, is no place to hold a juvenile.
Suppose you get this kid something to eat, get him cleaned up so it'll be presentable for court tomorrow morning. He's hungry, he's been laying out, and then I'll see him in the morning.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Bucky, I'll see you in the morning.
The officer, by showing concern for the juvenile's welfare, can help make up for improper facilities.
Let me go, you lousy bastards! Let me go! Get your hands off me! Let me... Oh, damn cop! Let me go! Get here one at a time, you lousy bastards!
Calm down.
An emotionally disturbed subject is given some time to cool off before being interviewed. The officer checks the files in the interval.
Feel a little better, John?
I feel lousy.
The officer treats this violent boy with the same patient consideration he shows to others. Getting tough with this sort of subject would only increase his self-pity, give him an excuse for continual suspicion and rebellion. This boy needs the help of a mental health specialist. Too often, such assistance is not available.
John, I'm looking over your card here. At the different times you've been into the station, been in difficulty. I notice that it's just constantly one fight after another. That's the only difficulty you seem to get yourself in.
Yeah, I fight because they look at me the wrong way,
Well, these
and I
people,
gotta hit them.
these people you fight with, John, is it a matter of you just don't like them, or is it just a matter of spontaneous fight start?
No, sometimes I fight with people I like a lot. And they just say something that...
Well, when it's all over with, John, what have you really gained out of it? Anything?
No, I never feel good after it.
Well, the only thing that amazes me about this...
This officer recognizes the vicious circle of resentment, fear, self-pity, and retaliation which dominates John Scott.
Wasn't even bothering this guy.
He's careful not to provide Scott with any excuse to rebel, to feel persecuted.
And I hit him with a bottle.
Had you said anything at all to him?
I told him to go to hell.
police officer and the specialist are members of the same team. Through them, law enforcement and changing the outlook and behavior of one individual become part of the same essential endeavor.
When you were picked up by the uniformed officers leaving the ball field, why all the big fight? What'd you gain out of it?
I just didn't like the way they grabbed me. That's all. They grabbed me and I got scared. I was scared. I didn't want to go to jail.
Well, from what
I was sorry after I hit the guy. I mean, I wasn't sorry when I did it, but I was really sorry after.
Well, John, how long do you think we can keep slipping by these things here? I'm sorry, and that seems to heal all wounds.
I don't know.
The juvenile officer is a familiar figure at the courthouse, works closely with probation and others of the juvenile court staff.
Jack, your report is certainly not encouraging about the boy's home situation. Probation is always difficult under these conditions.
Yes, sir. The father is an alcoholic, and we were unable to get him to go to the alcoholics clinic. And probation just doesn't seem to be working, Your Honor.
Just haven't been able to get him to cooperate at all.
No, sir.
Yes? Certainly, Louise. Send him in. I want to talk with him anyway. Hello, Arthur. Come on in. Have a seat. How's the old turkey shooter?
Well, not too good a time for hunting, Judge. There's the information that you asked for, and I dropped the other off to Mr. Van Horn.
Good. I want to talk with you about this later. Jack and I have been going over the probation report on that Preston boy.
Yes, young Bucky.
Your report on him wasn't questioned at the hearing. I found him delinquent as charged.
Probation doesn't seem to be the answer. It's not working. Now we're thinking about training school.
The boy seems to be interested in cars.
Yeah, we know that, the way you can hotwire them.
They've got some new equipment up at the training school now.
Yes, I saw it. I was up there the other day. I saw a new lathe.
The trouble is they're so crowded. Livas called me the other day and said not to send any more over than we had to. What about probation in a foster home, Jack?
Be all right, Judge, if we could find one.
How about the Johnson home?
Talked with Ms. Murphy at welfare. She says that this home is full. They have a boy there. It's awful hard to get a home for a teenager now, Judge. People just aren't interested in taking teenagers.
In view of your past record and the family situation which exists at home, this court orders that you be committed to the State Training School for Boys, the Senior Division, for an indefinite period of time. You'll be able to learn a trade there, and I hope will come out a good and better citizen than your past has demonstrated. It's up to you.
Hi, Bob. How you doing? John.
Hi, Art.
Been looking for you.
What's trouble?
Thought maybe you'd like to know how Bucky made out in court the other day.
Oh, yeah. What'd the judge do? Kiss him on his hand and send him home?
No, he gave him an indefinite stay up at training school. Maybe do him some good this time.
Well, I hope it will. Maybe it might teach him something.
Good.
All right.
And
I'll see you later. Okay, Art.
We hear a lot of talk about cooperation, about working closely together with the other agencies involved in the handling of juveniles. That is important. But we believe that cooperation begins at home. It begins right in our own department, with the juvenile officers letting the uniformed officers know the dispositions of the cases in which they are involved. It's all part of developing a sound attitude in every officer. An attitude which is consistent with the finest principles of law enforcement. An attitude which will do the most good for the youth of our country.
I'm Dr. Sidney Workman, Associate Director of the Department of Psychiatry, Children's Hospital of Washington, D.C. With me are representatives of several police departments. All of us are concerned with juvenile delinquency and would like to begin the discussion of the film Headed for Trouble. Officer Duvall, what did you think of the handling of Jane Parrish in the film?
Well, I noticed when he walked in the soda shop there and told Jane Parrish that he was going to take her to headquarters. Evidently, he took her out, put her in the cruiser, and took her on down to headquarters. But I've noticed in a lot of police departments, this is not allowed to have a woman in the car with a uniformed man unless there is a woman policeman along or transported by a woman policeman.
Ideally, a female, whether an adult or a juvenile, should not be transported alone, especially with one male officer or even with two. If at all possible, the services of a policewoman or a matron should be secured. Sometimes that is impossible because of lack of personnel or transportation facilities, but if it can be done, it should be done.
Well, this girl wasn't arrested. Would you say, Officer Duvall? She wasn't placed under arrest. Or
No.
What you call that arrest?
No, she was not arrested, but she was picked up.
On a complaint of the mother, is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, do you think the police officer was justified in taking her in under those conditions? He goes to this, she wasn't violating any law at the moment, was she?
No, but she had been phoned in as a missing person. And I feel that the police officer had every right to go in and take her out of that soda shop.
One of the main questions is what we can do with youngsters like this in a helpful way.
We have to remember that usually when we see these girls, or girls in particular, where they're in emergency situations, if we can sit down and talk with the girls and their parents, we can refer them to the proper social agencies who deal with them in an extensive way, manner in which we do not have time or the personnel to deal. We refer them to psychiatrists, other social agencies, religious organizations, churches, anything that's indicated by the particular problem.
One of the important things is being able to know what other agencies in the community you have available to you.
That's true, and what hours they're open.
Doctor, I would like to bring out one point here. Where the officer arrested that boy for the stolen car, too many times a young police officer makes his arrest. He is excited, and he's got to learn to control this excitement when he makes an arrest, because sometimes excitement will cause his prisoner, especially if it is a juvenile, to do something drastic which he wouldn't ordinarily do. Of course, this comes with experience, and this experience is what's needed for a person who's going to be a juvenile officer later on. And once he has controlled himself to that and controlled his emotions, then he's stable and able to become a good juvenile officer.
That's very true. But here he's just apprehended this lad who has stolen an automobile, tried to outrun him, and the police officer's not expected to tip his hat to him when he comes up to him. It's not personal with the police officer. In this chase, this man could very easily have killed some innocent persons. The police officer's mindful of that, and he certainly has to be prepared when he comes up to make an arrest of such an individual.
Well, I noticed in this film that this officer was unable to secure any information from this boy. And I feel that had he used another approach, the boy may have told him a little more than he did in the film.
What kind of approach did you mean?
Well, you can be firm with a juvenile and still not make him feel like he's being pushed around. Use a different tone of voice. Let him know that you mean business, but let him know that you're there to help him, not to hurt him in any way.
Now that's what a new uniform officer will learn if they have close cooperation between the uniform and the plainclothes force, just like this picture showed us here. This juvenile officer came back and explained to the arresting officer, that is the man that was in uniform, what happened to the boy, and he explained to him why he did certain things. And that has a tendency to make a better working relationship and show this officer certain things that he can do while he's walking his beat or driving his police patrol car.
Do any of us think there should be a difference in the way a uniformed officer handles a juvenile against the way a plainclothesman should handle it?
You spoke of uniform officers and plain clothes officers. Shouldn't we clarify that a bit by saying this plain clothes officer is a juvenile officer and has been trained in the handling of juveniles under such situations? He's not just an ordinary plain clothes officer like a regular detective. He's a trained juvenile officer.
Well, I feel that the actions of a uniformed policeman, first man on the scene when placing a juvenile under arrest, is going to have a big bearing on the way that juvenile is going to act, no matter whether you're in uniform or whether you're in civilian clothes. Because most juveniles nowadays that I've run across will find that you're a policeman, no matter whether you're in uniform or you're out of uniform. And you're there for one purpose, and that's to get a conviction. So they feel that, uniform or not, if they're treated right, let me tell you what you want to know. Push them around, they're not going to tell you a thing.
Going now to John, the violent boy, I wonder what any of you thought about the handling of him, both before he got to jail and afterward.
Well, from John's actions, apparently prior to the arrest of the police, appearance of the police, he had assaulted a lad with a bottle. He was in a violent stage. There was nothing else the police could do but to restrain him and use the necessary force to convey him to a place of security. This frequently brings on complaints of using unnecessary force against a juvenile. But in this instance, I think the police were perfectly justified in using the amount of force that they did to convey this John to the lockup.
Well, I feel the same as the captain, that in the show there, while he was talking to the detective, he stated that he had swung at one of the officers. Well, we're out there to arrest people when they violate the law, and we're not out there to take beatings. And when you take a man in, you take him in with whatever force is necessary.
But there again, you had the good professional approach of the juvenile man coming in quiet and calm and going to explore the case in a businesslike and dignified manner.
Well, I see that our time is up. I know that there are many more things that we could discuss today. We haven't had a chance to talk about the juvenile court, about probation, about community relations, about the many other aspects of this film and the work with delinquents. We hope, though, that you in the audience will continue the discussion that we've started.
National Educational Television.
Educational television.
He thought he was in the know until he went to jail. Then he really learned how to operate. He came in a beginner, an amateur, and went out a pro. Join us as we discuss education for crime. Searchlights on Delinquency, a blueprint for action, produced for the Educational Television and Radio Center under the supervision of the Sheriff's Office of Cook County, Illinois. Featuring the nationally known criminologist and Sheriff of Cook County, Joseph D. Lohman. Tonight's guest, Mr. Hans W. Mattick, Assistant Warden of the Cook County Jail and formerly criminologist for the Illinois Parole and Pardon Board in the Stateville Joliet Penitentiary. And now, Sheriff Lohman.
Criminal behavior, like all forms of human behavior, is learned behavior. Juvenile delinquency is developed through experiences that represent a learning process into mature criminality. And too often the educative process consists at points of experiences and even actions by conventional society itself which are not realized as contributions to the further development of criminality. The juvenile delinquent does not inherit his disposition toward crime. The professional criminal does not inherit it. The individual does not invent his disposition toward crime or the various ways and means by which he acts against the conventional world. He learns these things from other people, and he becomes ever more sophisticated as his learning process is more complete. Just as a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher becomes proficient as such through contact with persons who know about those professions, just as a doctor or lawyer or a teacher learns about the disciplines in which they may work through the sciences that possess the knowledge and the skills and the information that enter into their professions, so does a professional criminal become such by contact with those individuals who possess the fund of information which makes up the world of crime. The individual learns about crime as one learns about anything, by being exposed to the knowledge or the experience of others. And paradoxically enough, it helps to be in an institution which is designed either to punish the criminal or to rehabilitate him, may in fact, and too often does, merely mature him as a criminal, send him further along the road to crime. What does one learn generally from other people? One acquires one's attitudes and values, the norms of conduct, even the motives themselves. And one acquires as well the techniques and skills that are useful in supporting and implementing those values and those norms. These things we learn from others in groups, either through processes of formal education such as the school, or more importantly, through informal association in the home, in the playgroup, in the neighborhood, or in the community. How does one learn about crime or to be a criminal? By contact with the culture of crime, by being in contact and communication with others through language and symbols, just as one learns about anything else. And learning takes place, as I have suggested, not only in formal classes, but in and through all kinds of group experience. And we have learned that the most forceful education is that which goes on in intimate and highly personal groups. And these exist for delinquents just as surely as they may exist for youngsters brought up in a law-abiding atmosphere. In our complex society, there are many communities, many different groupings, and each enters into the individuals who are a part of them or live in them. We participate at one and the same time in the larger society and also in the local community. And we may live in a local community. The youngster may be brought up in an area where there is a tradition of crime, where there are forces which prepare him for such a career. And strangely enough, whatever formal education he gets may come in the form of institutions which further support those original ideas and notions that he has secured in some backwash of the general community. In free society, an individual may reflect the qualities in the atmosphere of his neighborhood. He may be a delinquent out of a delinquent area, or he may be a conventional citizen out of a middle-class, conventionally organized community. Whatever he is scattered here and there, reflecting the highly differentiated character of the large, free community. But if he gets in contact, in conflict with the law, if he has occasion to be acted against by society, if we elect to put him aside and to treat of him with a view to reforming him, we gather together all these individuals from their separate places and bring them together in one place. And these individuals are all alike in these separate places as delinquent, only to come together from their separate existences in the free community and to be created together as a prison community, to come together here in a society which is afforded for them by the conventional world. The prison represents a paradox. The reform school, the training school, all of these are paradoxical in that the men who administer them, the rules and regulations by which we direct them, the guards who hold them fast and secure them within the institution, represent one set of standards, one set of views. They reflect the concern of society with the ordering and forbidding of these people along new lines, away from their older habits. This is cold, forbidding to the men themselves. Each one acted against as if he were suspect continuously. But inside this building, these people who guard them are found together persons who comfort each other, who exchange in the warmth and the understanding of their common plight, their past experience, reinforce together their hostility toward the world which has put them there. And one may ask, which is more forceful by way of education? This influence in the warm center or heart of the prison, or the guards who surround them and hold them constantly suspect? Perhaps we can get an answer to that question by going to one of the experts who spent many years as a research student and as an administrator of correctional institutions. Mr. Hans W. Mattick was formerly criminologist with the Illinois Parole and Pardon Board, and presently is assistant warden of the Cook County Jail, one of the largest institutions of its kind in the United States. Mr. Mattick, in what sense is the jail able to accomplish a single educative purpose, such as reform and rehabilitation? Or is there indeed another process of which too few are aware?
Well, a prison is certainly an ambivalent and ambiguous sort of place, such as you have suggested. It might be likened unto a caste society where the conventional influences are imposed in the form of force, coercion, rules, forbidding, and so forth, and the unconventional is a caste of the submerged who represent the inmates. And each has interests in common which make for a certain polarity within a prison, and although there are areas of cross-communication, nevertheless there is this division within which comes from common interests and common purposes, which, even with the best intentions on the part of the community to accomplish a constructive purpose, nevertheless has this undercurrent of negative action, communication, and so forth, which defeats that conventional purpose.
Now, you administer an institution of considerable size today with something like 2,000 inmates. How likely is it that any number of these would, in their previous experience, have an opportunity to share their past life and their hopes and aspirations with as many benighted persons such as themselves as they do experience in the county jail?
Well, of course, we do know that most offenders who come to penitentiaries, prisons, and jails are group offenders. That is, the individual offender is rather the exception. However, they know each other in the community only in these small groups and may have heard of one another by reputation. However, when the community takes action against their depredations and so forth, it brings them together so that people who would have absolutely have no inkling of one another, or only the most fortuitous contact, here are brought together in intimate contact. And the fact that prisons and jails are generally overcrowding and lacking in space, even these physical aspects, contribute to the throwing together and throwing in upon one another of this delinquent population, where this intensive kind of communication goes forward and the exchange of criminal information, techniques, and skills.
Now, this polarity that you speak of places us in the position of seeing the prison or the jail or the reformatory as an institution which has really two communities within it. The community, on one hand, of the people who administer it, in this detached, remote, impersonal sense in which they deal with the inmates, and this thing which the inmates themselves create and which they are constantly trying to hide, as I take it, from the administration.
Well, that's true, Sheriff, and I've brought along some films here which can perhaps illustrate this by way of a series of incidents that have been filmed to bring this point forward. We see here, for instance, an inmate who is just entering a jail being processed. You'll notice that the predominant tone of the whole action is to treat the inmate as a sort of an object a source of information and so forth, there's certainly no warmth here. This doesn't mean that we have to be sentimental about this, but we do have to see what the experience means to the prison inmate from the inside in order to understand and deal with him. Here, he is stripped of his clothing, his whole demeanor is suspect, and there's good legitimate reason to suspect him, perhaps, but nevertheless we do have to think of these effects on the inmate and what this does to him by way of readying him for a reception with people who are treated in a like way.
In other words, the jail administration or the prison administration is pushed into the position because of the needs and hopes and aspirations of the men themselves of regarding every action on their part as suspect, to treat with them impersonally as a statistic, so to speak, as a number that might, if they weren't watched too carefully, do something that would be a problem.
Yes, and the inmates reflect this, of course, in many informal kinds of organization, which are a sort of a passive resistance. And then the nature of social life in a jail is of such a nature that men reinforce one another's values, and the predominant values tend to be those of those who have been there the longest, those who have the greatest reputation, and in that kind of a highly selected population, those will be precisely those that are most delinquent.
Any ordinary citizen who's never been in a jail can't begin to appreciate what it means to be mugged, so to speak, as this man is, have his clothes taken from him, be carefully searched, constantly told not to talk out loud and obey orders, keep clean. That is to say, to destroy every vestige of privacy which every human being ordinarily takes for granted, and in that sense to become public in every respect.
We have to consider another aspect of what this does. Life in the free community requires a certain amount of initiative and drive and so forth, and yet when we put a man in prison or in a jail, he is ordered, his thinking is done for him, he works on schedules not set by himself, with the result that he becomes prisonized if he is at all passive and has no inner resources. And this impersonal handling, such as we see here, where a man is simply a piece of paper, a card, the prisoners say, I came in with a name, but now I'm a number, and things of that kind, all of this contribute to this kind of prisonization and the throwing in upon one another of men where they reinforce the values that we do not want to see reinforced.
Well, this formal record and this statistical character he has for the rest of his life seems to stand in place of his person, which is to say he has become an evil thing and is constantly referred to as that evil thing by way of stamps, by way of papers, by way of elements which make him merely this suspect thing.
Yes, many inmates who may have been successful from the standpoint of never being committed again, nevertheless are haunted as by a specter of this record, and it assumes actually even more psychological significance than it in an objective sense actually has. Here we have the bullpen wall. You see the sort of a transient kind of communication, this fugitive communication, which goes on and which sort of contributes to a sense of alienation, a sense of loss. You even see here the juxtaposition of protest on the wall and forbidding on the side. Here we have a hopeful sort of a sentiment.
Well, these things on the wall are really the tangible evidence that much is going on that doesn't meet the eye by way of exchange of information, ideas, thinking, point of view. And all of that is on the other side of those bars, while this formal, forbidding world is on this side of the bar. Now, here's a man going in, I take it.
Yes.
He's going to meet that other world, is he not?
That's right. Now, when he first comes into the cell such as this, at first he may be taken in with a certain amount of distrust and reserve on the part of other inmates because they don't know him. However, after a certain passage of time or after a common experience, or even after perhaps a form of initiation or something in the nature of a kangaroo court, such as exists in many prison institutions, thereafter, when he's proved himself, such a thing as this, where he's being shaken down to see what he has on him and so forth, while the others remain passively in the background, that sort of thing will make him one of the group.
There are all these keys which are locking the men in to keep them from being out in the free world, locking them away from the free community, but they are by the same token locking them in a community of their own and throwing each of these men at the mercy of and in contact with this world of the delinquents and criminals themselves.
Yes, I think we have to understand the sense in which there is no privacy in an institution, and of necessity it must be so if an institution is to be supervised properly. And yet when a man has no privacy, it makes changes in him and makes for certain kinds of public behavior which cannot but be delinquent if the culture surrounding him is delinquent. Here we have an example of a prison newspaper being run off. This is one of the few bridges between the inmates and the administration and the form of, let us say, more conventional kind of communication that does go on in a jail.
Well, even that, the title of that paper, The Grapevine, is rather significant because I suspect that what is acceptable to the administration doesn't afford ample opportunity for the inmates to communicate.
Well, that's certainly true, and we, for instance, have a good example here. Here we have what apparently is a classroom scene. The prison administration gathers inmates together from various parts of the jail or the prison and assembles them here. And here, while ostensibly teaching is going on, and undoubtedly there are some sincere students there, nevertheless you will note those two inmates in the back are having a rather intensive, quiet conversation that is unrelated to the subject matter that's going on, and this is really what you've referred to before as informal, primary type of education which has the greatest effect.
Well, this then becomes even an objective of every inmate, to be able to insinuate himself into the company of others with whom he can communicate, with whom he wants to be, and not in accordance, of course, with the knowledge or the purpose of the administration itself. Like get assigned to these different places together, do they not?
That's true. For instance, you will see that one man may walk by a particular location and doesn't mean anything. You will see that here's another one waiting. However, another one may be passing by that place on the way to the hospital, but he is sick mainly to get to this point of communication. And then the communication goes on. This is really the obverse of all the watching, the lack of privacy that goes on, this sort of subconscious mind of the prison or jail community which communicates in its own terms. Here we see an elevator shaft being used for this purpose and the cooperation of a number of inmates in order to effect a sub rosa kind of communication. This happens to be between floors. And fairly soon you will see that whatever it was, there's a form of reward attached to it. And just as learning is learned through punishment and reward, here we see the reward following and the cooperative effort. And in the final analysis, here you see them splitting the spoils and going on about their business, ostensibly and manifestly conventional, but yet communicating in their own way.
Well, obviously, if one visits a jail or a prison, what it is in fact, as it influences the lives of persons, never meets the eye of the occasional visitor.
Well, that's perfectly true. As a matter of fact, you can say that the most important things in a prison community are invisible. Many prison administrators are proud of polished brass, paint, and clean windows, but we are interested in human effects and the effect on human personality, and that is not very visible unless you live with it from day to day.
Now, we see here, then, in the prison or jail community, something that develops in the direction of making these men more and more like each other, contrasted with the free community, which presumably has everything and anything in it. Here these are singled out and brought together in this place. But is it correct to say that people are so different in the free community and only in the jail they come to be like one another as a result of this educative process within the jail? Next time we meet, we would like to take you with us into another area of the delinquency problem, to explore, if you please, for a time, the problem of the home, so crucial in the development of every child. The sense in which the defective or broken home, the impaired home, the disrupted home, plays a role in the production of delinquency and of crime. For in a defective child-parent relationship lies that condition under which irresponsibility is bred in children. In the development of delinquency, in the development of the criminal offender, the broken home has played a major role. Once again, join us in our next program when we will throw the searchlight on delinquency, the broken home. Thank you for being with us.
Searchlights on Delinquency, a blueprint for action, was prepared for the Educational Television and Radio Center under the supervision of the Sheriff's Office of Cook County, Illinois. Searchlights on Delinquency features Joseph D. Lohman, nationally known criminologist and the Sheriff of Cook County. Tonight's guest, Hans W. Mattick, Assistant Warden of the Cook County Jail. Film sequences by Stephen Lasker. Searchlights on Delinquency is directed by Thomas Aldridge, produced by Alan Sweeto. Searchlights on Delinquency was presented in Chicago under the auspices of station WTTW.
This is National Educational Television.